Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to follow one single solitary log entry on its entire journey through Google Cloud's logging architecture. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll get how this whole critical service works from the inside out. Let's dive in. You know, when you're managing a huge, complex cloud environment, doesn't it sometimes just feel like a total black box? You know stuff is happening in there, but you can't really see it. Well, logs. Logs are the flashlight. They're what turns that black box into a glass box, letting you see every action, every error, every single event. So, we're going to follow our log through 5 key stages of its life. We'll see where it's born, we'll watch it get routed, figure out where it gets stored, learn how it actually triggers an action, and then we'll wrap it all up with a cheat sheet of the most important things to remember. All right, every journey has a beginning. And for our log, it all starts at the moment of creation. So where do these things actually come from in the first place, inside the giant Google Cloud ecosystem? Well, a log can be a bunch of different things. You've got your admin activity logs, which track things like, hey, who just spun up that new VM? Then there are data access logs, showing who's reading what data. You also have system event logs, which are generated by Google's own systems. Access transparency logs are super interesting. They show you when Google's support team has to interact with your stuff. And of course, the big one, application logs, the ones your own code is writing. Now, for services like a plain old compute engine VM, logs don't just magically beam themselves up. Something on the machine has to actually collect them. And this is a really key distinction to understand. Fluentd is for logs, and collectd is for metrics. But the new hotness is the ops agent, which handles both. That's exactly why Google recommends you use it for everything now. But here's the really cool part. If you're using serverless stuff like Cloud Run or Cloud Functions, you can just forget about agents entirely. Google has built the log collection right into the platform for you. It just works, which is awesome. Okay, so our log has been created and collected. Now it arrives at this central hub, this massive crossroads called the log router. Seriously, think of it like the main postal sorting facility for every single log in your entire project. So how does this giant post office know where to send our log? It uses these simple rules called syncs. A sync is basically just an instruction that says, hey, if a log looks like this, send it over to that destination. And get this, you can have multiple syncs, so a really important log can be sent to several different places all at the same time. Now listen up, because this is huge. The log router can only send logs to 4 and only 4 types of destinations. For searching and digging through them, you use a logging bucket. For cheap long-term storage, you use cloud storage. For crazy powerful SQL analytics, you send them to BigQuery. And to stream them out to some other tool, maybe like Splunk, you use PubSub. That's the list, just those 4. And this right here is such a critical point, and it's a classic trip up on certification exams. You absolutely, positively cannot route logs directly to a database like Cloud SQL or Firestore. You just can't. Remember those 4 destinations we just talked about? They're your only options, period. Before our log gets to where it's going, it has to get past the bouncer at the door. These are called exclusion filters, and they are your #1 best friend for saving money. They let you spot all that noisy, low-value log spam and just drop it on the floor before you ever get charged a penny for it. It's a super powerful way to keep your logging bill in check. All right, let's say our log made it past the bouncer. Its next stop is usually a storage destination, most often a log bucket. This is where it's going to live for a while, and there are 2 default buckets that you absolutely have to know inside and out. So on the left, you've got the required bucket. This thing holds the crown jewels, the critical security logs like admin activity and system events. Then on the right, you have the default bucket, which gets, well, pretty much everything else, like all your app logs. And the differences are massive. Required has a fixed retention period, and it's free, while default is totally configurable, but you pay for the storage. Let's just pause on this number for a second. 400 days. I want this number burned into your memory. 400 days. This is the retention period for that required bucket. It's one of the most common facts they test you on about cloud logging. It's a hard-coded number you just have to know. And just to really hammer this point home about the required bucket, you cannot change that 400-day retention period, and you are not billed for its storage. It's fixed and it's free. These 2 facts are absolutely crucial to remember. So our log is now sitting there all safe and sound inside a bucket. But so what? Its journey isn't really over. A log that just sits there is not very useful, is it? The real power comes when you turn that piece of data into an actual signal, an alert that tells you to do something.
But here's another common point of confusion. You'd think you could just, right-click on a log entry and say, alert me when this happens again. But you can't. Cloud logging itself doesn't actually do alerting. So how in the world do you get that critical notification when something goes sideways?
It's actually a three-step dance between two different services. First, over in cloud logging, you create what's called a log-based metric, which basically just counts how many times you see a certain log. Second, you hop over to cloud monitoring and you create an alerting policy that watches that new number. And finally, you tell it who to notify when that number crosses a line. So logging provides the data and monitoring takes the action.
Wow, we've covered the entire journey from birth to action. Now, let's boil all of that down into a rapid-fire cheat sheet with the key facts you absolutely need to remember, whether you're managing this stuff in the real world or, for your next exam.
First up, storage and routing. Remember, the required bucket is 400 days, free and fixed. The default bucket starts at 30 days, you pay for it, and you can change it. If you need to redact sensitive data, you have to do it inside the agent itself. And for centralized logging across your whole org, you create one sync at the top level and add that -include children flag.
Next, cost and troubleshooting. To save money, your best tools are exclusion filters and cutting down on metadata. For cheap, long-term archival, always route to cloud storage. And please, remember this classic troubleshooting trap. If logs aren't showing up, it is not your VPC firewall. Logging traffic going to Google's APIs is never blocked by your firewall rules.
So here's the big takeaway from all this. When you really get these concepts, you realize a logging pipeline is so much more than just a dusty old record of the past. It becomes your real-time guide to what's happening right now, and it's your early warning system for the future health of your entire system. Every single second, your systems are spitting out thousands of these little log entries, and each one is a tiny piece of a much larger story about performance, security, and what your users are doing. The real question is, are you actually set up to listen?
We hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe for more Apex insights.